I stayed for the brazing he said was cancelled. The alert blinked on our shared calendar at 8:42 a.m. Frame building night 6:00:10:30 mitering plus jig setup plus brazing. I pictured the jig's arms opening like a shrug that knew what it was doing, and then the event disappeared as if the day were embarrassed to have promised anything at all. 2 minutes later, a text from Ben. Shop's dark tonight, acetylene regulator failed. I'll be home early. Do you want me to grab pho? Read, I thumbed back pho yes, and set the phone face down on the museum lighting plot I kept threatening to finish. The words mitering night stayed in my mouth like a mint I hadn't earned. We've been together 7 years. Ben cycles through careful trades the way other people shuffle playlists. A winter of bicycle wheels, a spring of joinery, a summer of espresso machines, and this last year, steel frames at a community frame shop wedged behind a coffee roaster. He comes home smelling faintly of warm metal and simple green, with flux freckles on his forearms and a patience I don't always own. He says phrases I keep in my pocket because I want them to be about more than bikes. Heat the steel, not the rod. Alignment is an invitation. Let the triangle breathe. We had a harmless plan for the evening. Soup, a foolish movie we refused to abandon bed. At 5:07 p.m. the frame shop's account posted a story. The regulator back on thumbs up. 2 frame jigs dressed with masking tape like nervous tuxedos. A stack of lugs in a tray as if they'd been washed for supper. And a person I recognized by the tilt of his jaw even from that distance. Owen, balancing a length of brass rod like a conductor who didn't mind being wrong. Overlay text. Regulator REPLACED. We're ON, patient heat only. If they're open now, we could swing by to say hi, I said, trying for a voice without agenda. For me it's off, Ben said, not unkindly, slicing scallions with the focus he uses when he's choosing not to argue with himself. I don't have good hands tonight. Which could have been about the torch or about us. Got it, I told the cutting board. The part of me that calls itself prudence tied its boots loosely, knowing full well they'd come untied. At 6:11, I parked behind the roaster and wrote the kind of administrative lie that only comforts the person sending it. Freight landed early. Going to sign at the museum, I typed. The dots arrived and delivered a thumbs up. Reasonable emojis deserve better people. Inside, the shop smelled like cleanser and the past. The dust collector hummed a convincing, "We're fine." The milling machine stood like serious cousins at a reunion. 2 big jigs clamped to benches faced one another like patient arguments. A dozen people were already doing the quiet choreography of work. Eyeball a tube, wipe with acetone, check the miters against a paper template, laugh softly without moving the mouth much. A sign on the corkboard read, "Don't punish steel for telling the truth." Another, "Heat the joint, not your ego." Ben arrived at 6:24 with his tote that says ALLOWED to adjust. He wasn't alone. He walked with Owen in the way people walk with someone who knows where the step is. Half a body of practice space that isn't flirting until it matters that it is. He saw me and did that 2-heartbeat step back, his little sabirolo of hesitation, then set a smile between us like a coaster. "Tonight we keep it boring," said Kim, the coordinator, clapping once without drama. "We'll finish the down tube miters, check the head tube alignment, then brass on the practice lugs. Rules: heat the steel, not the rod. Don't chase the puddle with your fear. If you need to cough, not at the flux. And if you need to gossip, not near the oxygen. Alignment is kindness, not a court case." The laugh the room gave back was the laugh of people relieved to be bossed by rules they already believed. I followed Ben with my eyes. He checked his down tube against a paper compass of angles, slid the tube into the vise, and turned on the file like it was a sentence that had already decided to end well. Owen passed him a small half-round, then stepped back, then did nothing. Sometimes the best help is leaving a gesture alone. Jealousy rose like a badly trained dog. I gave it a job. I held a flashlight while a teenager decided which side of his miter loved him. I fetched a rag and acetone for a woman who kept believing cleanliness was rudeness. I sorted a handful of 56% silver rods back into the right tube as if order might bring me luck. Jig set, Kim called. You could feel the room draw a breath it trusted. Ben laid his main triangle into the jig, head tube snug, down tube honest, top tube pretending not to be nervous. The numbers on the digital angle finder refused drama and landed where his sketch had promised. Owen placed a lug on the head tube like a person setting a violin under the chin and tapped it twice with a gloved finger. It's paying attention, he said. At the break, paper cups of coffee that had never met pride and a bag of pretzels that tasted exactly like not leaving, Ben drifted toward me. You're here, he said, a sentence that didn't brandish a knife. I hear observation is already half alignment, I said, stealing from a night we hadn't told anyone we had. Also, you lied. Your voice is fine. Regulator's back, he said. His mouth tried for casual and missed. And I wanted to be the version of me that learns without writing you a report. Also, his eyes slid to Owen and back. Sometimes it's not the worst thing to let someone else correct my heat. He has certain hands. The phrase landed like a splinter in a palm callus. I used the truth I'd brought as a passport. I was afraid you'd get used to a good job that wasn't mine. Ben set his palm on the jig's crossbar the way he sets it on our kitchen table when he wants to quiet more than furniture. Stay, he said, no theater, some mercy. But be a student. If Kim asks what brazing does, don't say glues it forever. Say gives the joint a way to exist. Can you do that? I can try, I said. The polite yes my mouth keeps around for better men. The second half began the way second halves should. Somebody handed me a tool I hadn't earned. Want a puddle on the practice joints? Kim asked, crooking a finger. We need a quiet wrist and ordinary breathing. She set a practice lug and 2 short tubes in a vise, dipped a brush into white flux that looked like someone's bad frosting, and painted the joint like she was blessing it. Torch angle like the hand of a person who doesn't need to win. Heat the steel until the rod wants to be part of the story. Don't write a novel with it. I did not burn the shop down. The first pass threw off small green complaints that weren't language. Back the torch off, Kim said, low and kind. You win by asking. I asked with heat instead of volume. The brass rod finally melted into a polite puddle and walked a little around the lug like someone testing a room before speaking. Want to try the jig? Owen asked when my practice joint stopped protesting. He wiped a small crescent of flux off the head lug, handed me the torch, and held the brass rod lightly in front of the heat so I could see what patience looked like. Heat in front of the puddle, not behind, he said. Invite it. I invited. The brass considered and then agreed. It walked the lug with me, not because I deserved it, but because steel likes when people finally pick the right verb. Across the room, Ben was teaching a kid how to file a miter without pretending it was proof of anything. He wasn't correcting. The kid learned anyway. It made me jealous. It made me stay. Quick exercise, Kim called when the room's nerves had settled into a hum. She used the tone of a teacher who remembers both kindergarten and night school. On a strip of masking tape, write 1 sentence for tomorrow. Not about steel, about you. It has to describe you without nomming you. Stick it on your practice lug. If you don't have a pen, we own 8. She didn't read over shoulders. We are not children. Ben wrote, don't type me so much, I open by myself. Owen, neat as an invoice, wrote, I prepare the air, I wrote. I'm learning to give the joint a way to exist without proving I know the way. A woman who had been overcleaning everything wrote, I can leave a little flux without calling it failure. The teenager with the miter wrote, I don't have to file to the apology. Kim walked by and tapped each strip like a tiny bell. We lit the torch for the real joint. Ben's hands stopped pretending they weren't good. The brass found a way to be plural without melting into dishonesty. Don't chase it, Owen said, soft. Let it choose where to be loyal. The joint sighed that little exhale people do when they realize they are going to get away with being themselves. Outside, the alley smelled like coffee and not having to explain. You lied, Ben said, not sharpening the word. Poorly, I said. I could have said I was scared, that your night might have a life that doesn't need me. Tell me about Owen without poetry. He proposes and then steps out, Ben said. He doesn't collect debts. Stepping out, I repeated. It tasted like cinnamon. Ben took my hand inside his jacket pocket, which is how he keeps me warm when I'm pretending I'm fine. At home, we put 3 things on the table, our masking tape sentences and a napkin where Kim had scribbled heat the steel, not the rod in a hand I wanted to tease later. Let's write a house rules card, I said. 5 lines, a staff. We don't have to sing in tune. Ben found a pen that refuses metaphors and waited. We wrote. If the calendar blinks, we talk. We don't let the shop decide our honesty. If a place outside makes us more alive, we show the other the door and say where the tea is and where the torch is not. Jealous means look closer, not hunt a fault. If one of us climbs onto his mezzanine, the other puts a tool in his hand. A file, a phrase, a clamp, and a time to breathe. Once a week we hang something that breathes, image, label, sentence, without explaining it until we read it aloud together. In the weeks after, I learned the difference between heat that begs and heat that proposes. I learned not to chase the puddle. It hates being chased. I learned to let the jig hold my need to be precise so I could be kind instead. Owen showed me how to check alignment with a string line and stop before I turned a taut line into a punishment. Kim taught me to clean without scrubbing away the story. Ben lent me his useful silence, the kind that keeps my hands from apologizing when what they need to do is adjust. I don't pretend steel can fix what sentences break. We weren't broken, just poorly tempered. Edges too sharp, proofs too long, compassion aimed in the wrong direction. The jig taught me to wait. Flux taught me to believe in assistance that looks like a mess. Brass taught me to risk joining without demanding a guarantee. Justify, a word from my museum life, went back to being page direction. Give the line room so it holds. Last night, Ben slid our tape strips under the magnet strip above the sink. Across from them, I taped a photo Owen had taken of the head lug cooling, brass halo like a stubborn sunrise. The dog, the hyphen between us, walked through the kitchen like a professional separator of lines. We left the window open. March leaned in with a yes. Silence while the joint cools, Ben said, grinning. Standing by, I answered. Summary minus the sermon. Don't confuse pressure with proof. Air is already help. Jealousy behaves when you give it a job. Stepping out is not abandonment. Giving the joint a way to exist is not domination. And the same frame, offered by different hands, doesn't tell one story but stories that hold each other up. Tonight the calendar box is actually white. That means soup. Nothing compulsory, try again tomorrow. Ben rinses the flux brush. I fold the towel. The dog checks the table legs like a repair person who knows when things are fine. Between the photo and our sentences, I stick a small label. Here we give the joint a way to exist without proving it. Ben adds another. Here we say thank you. The kitchen breathes like a small frame shop practicing being a home. I don't clamp the ending. I let it cool, then hold. That's enough.